Hi, good morning. Today is 10th of December and it is also International Human Rights Day. While a lot of things actually define what is human rights because it's a long list of what individual freedoms constitute human rights, what are the responsibilities, duties, and all those aspects are also integrated into it. Basically, human rights deals with the fact that we all have certain will that we will to and this will you cannot actually control. So when we talk about human rights, we have right to freedom, but freedom in there are certain contexts also to it in terms of education, in terms of verbally talking out, communication, freedom from slavery, freedom from a lot of controlled environment or anything of that sort. If you have choices, a lot of aspects actually go into the human rights, especially when we talk about politics, when we talk about geography, when we talk about uh, social aspects, when we talk about uh, certain things that cannot be denied to any individual. So when we are talking about human rights today, but there are certain books that I have read and have picked up from my library that is there, and this particular books, I wouldn't say they are human rights books directly, but indirectly they talk about all these things in varying context, in varying situations. And I would like to share with you some books which I have handpicked from the library, and I would like to share with all of you that these two books are uh, available for you to pick up and read. But I wouldn't say that I would designate this as the ideal ones, but according to me and what I have read so far, I think these are a few of the books which could help you understand about human beings, about freedom, about will to live, about survival, and a lot of other things. So, starting off, the now these books are not in terms of whether I like them or whether they are my favorite or anything. They're just put together. So this book that I am talking about actually doesn't talk about human rights, but it does talk about it in a context of food, geography, and how uh, the our lack of awareness and lack of context, we make certain decisions which prove to be fatalist, I would say fatalistic judgment on people. And this book is from India only because India is culturally very rich, and there are different geographies involved, different cultures involved, different subcultures involved. So this particular book by Nandita Haksar is a beautiful one which talks about human rights in terms of understanding people and understanding what kind of foods that they eat, and if they're eating what's wrong in it. Like when we talk about people, they are saying like go vegan and don't eat animal meat and dog meat or this meat or that meat. We are discriminating too much, and on the context of that discrimination, we are actually killing each other. So though she has not written about it, but there have been incidents or cases wherein she has noted down about the experiences of dealing with food, with our way of not accepting what the other person would like to eat or not eat. So the human right that we're talking about in very minuscule context is that when a person has a choice to eat or not eat something, you can't just control that. So there's one book that I loved, and I would say that the different context that I would put in, I really loved it, and it's a book from Indian author. when we are talking about human rights, we also have a history wherein prior to independence and after independence we have seen a lot of casteism, kind of varna system, wherein we have been told that these particular people are kind of untouchables, you can't do that, you can't touch them, they are just, you know, low. And then we have Gandhiji, who brought out the concept of Harijan, and then he said, okay, fine, this is not the way we are going to live, because everybody is like, everybody has a right to live, everybody has a right to do something with their life. So when we are talking about these low caste people, we are also talking about slavery. Like, they are born by generation to generation that you are supposed to be in one particular vocation only. You can't shift to anything else. You are not touchable. So baluta. Baluta means that share from the harvest. And what happens is that this particular book by Daya Pava, it talks about slaves, people who are made to toil 24 hours a day, and in return, what do they get? Baluta. That is a share of the farmer's harvest. But that is so minimal, so scarce, and even in that also, they are ill treated, they are cursed, and then given as if it's mere something. So this particular book deals with human rights in terms of slavery, in terms of food, and in terms of how people are marginalized in society. Then we have something which is cuts across the gender and social order. When we're talking about patriarchy, matriarchy, and feminism and this and that, people are always, no, this is not fair and this is not done, and all this kind of stuff. So when we have this particular beautiful book, Outcast, this particular book is really lovely because it is actually Brushte in Malayalam, and it's a revenge of a woman who actually tries to wreck the whole Nambudri community, who are high class dominant families in Kerala, and how that she brings about a revolution in terms of accusing a woman all the time for everything, despite accepting her when you want to have adulterous relationships or something like that. You have no qualms, but when you want to put a blame on a woman, then you just take her and then just slash her around, and then that kind of a thing. So it's kind of sinful, it's kind of corruption that is there in the system she tries to break it. So this is another beautiful book. And then we have a book from Iran, but not from India. But once again, it's a book on women and how they have to deal with atrocities, how they are subject to being, helpless, or you can't do anything without your husband or father or a son, that kind of attitude. So this particular book is very, very powerful book, and it is a banned book, but then it has been the Book of Fate, and I had borrowed it from someone else to read. But it's really very beautiful book, and I would say that if you get your hand on this, then you definitely give it a good read. Then we have something for the young adults who would like to understand the situation of race, color, and apartheid. So when we talk about Africa, Not Our War series by Duckbill Publications is a wonderful exploratory book which I would recommend for all the young adults. And this particular book is When Morning Comes. He talks about young college students who are trying to gain a foothold in the movement and trying to establish themselves as a people who are revolutionist and trying to get across the barriers of color, race, as well as the go against the apartheid government and try to bring about change. So this particular book, written so simply but so evocative, it's wonderful to read. Another read which is also not of India, but I was kind of surprised that this particular book actually is taken from real life situation, and has gained lot of uproar, and that is Educated by Tara Westover, and it's a wonderful book which talks about how she's not been recognized by the government because there's no birth certificate, no proof, nothing, and yet, despite all odds, an education that she wants, an education that she wants to passionately pursue. Initially, of course, she was kind of dicey or kind of not able to apparently not able to understand how to go about with the whole system. So when we are talking about human rights, we are also talking about freedom and the right to be educated, right to learn something, right to gain skills, right to be also employed in that context. So when we are talking about education, this particular book is an eye opener because we always think that, oh yeah, people in other countries, UK, US, Europe, they all are educated. What's the big deal? They all can study. But this book is actually not related to exactly to human rights, but then it talks about it in that particular context about the struggles of a person, especially if when education is concerned. So this particular book is, of course, a good read, but the other one that I've picked up is a kind of another eye opener, of course, which talks about a very very much prevalent system. All of us have heard about people going to different countries to earn and provide for people and the home. So we have people from India going to various countries like UK, US, Canada, Gulf. So when we are talking about the Gulf countries have a lot of influx of South Asian people and as employees. This particular book, Perhaps Tomorrow, is by Puranam, and she talks about her experiences as a housemaid in the like Gulf countries, and how they are actually not given certain rights. Like, for example, they have been told that they are not supposed to go out anywhere, they are not supposed to do anything, which the family doesn't allow them. Then a lot of things they don't allow also, and how she tries to risk so many things, and how she also wants to ensure that her family is well supported also with all the money that she gets. So this particular book talks about the human rights in terms of not only slavery but also in terms of bondage, like when you are employed, the kind of bondage or contract that you have and how it affects people and families. So this particular book is all about that. Now the other book that I'm talking about is not exactly related to any human right per se, but it is a beautiful onset into what you talk about human rights in terms of India Pakistan partition. So partition was one of the more blackest period as far as India and Pakistan is concerned, and this particular book by Hiranandani, The Night Diary, I recommend this for young adults and people who are trying to understand the partition period. Why I chose this book is because it it doesn't directly deal with the conflict between the two countries, but it definitely touches upon the part that how one can leave one's house, one's place of birth, and move to another. Who decides for you or me, and who is the government to do that? Though these particular questions don't arise because of the book, but they are the offset of when the book, when you read it, you begin to question yourself as to what, who decides all that. Don't we have a right to live in our own country? So these kind of questions can arise from this book. And the last one the last one that I'm talking about is not once again, not in terms of human rights, but it's more in terms of attitude of the people. So when we are talking about this book, Wonder is about people who are special, people who are so endured so as to make others normal. People feel weird. But in weird context also there are a lot of challenges in terms of the special people are supposed to be put in special schools only. Say who? When we have inclusive education, talks about inclusive education globally, then why is it that a person should be going to a special school only? These questions that arose have been put out in this book. Apart from this, the book is actually a bestseller. This book has actually opened a lot of questions, a lot of discussions, a lot of ideas about what we term education, and should education be demarcating people or should it be inclusive? Because when we talk about education and the right to education, that's one of the basic human rights. So these all books tackling different aspects of human rights I have put across for you, and I do hope that if you can pick up even one of these and read, please let me know that you have done so. And if you have already read any of these books, please let me know, because I would be very much happy to discuss about any of these books with you. So thanks for listening to me and seeing this video. Do like and share and also subscribe, and have a good day. Thanks a lot. Bye.